All right, on social media, I'm seeing a lot of Canelo fans panic and say, Canelo better win. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. Bud looks ready. And ultimately, you know, a lot of you guys are going to comment, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about Canelo. But even if you are worried as a Canelo fan, he still has a chance to knock out Crawford. That's the thing. You know, there's weight classes for a reason. I've said that before. Even though I'm picking Crawford, of course, you know, Canelo's significantly bigger than Crawford, and I can't even say more skilled, because I really do personally think that Crawford's the more skilled fighter when you put them, you know, pound for pound. I think Crawford's a better fighter than Canelo Alvarez. You know, even if Crawford were to lose this fight, I'd still think he's a better fighter than Canelo, because that's the thing, you know, that's the complication of it. It's like, if Canelo beats Crawford, he wouldn't get that much credit from a lot of people. I would give him credit because I know how good Crawford is, but a lot of people are going to say, oh, he was, you know, the excuse is, oh, you're too small. He was small anyways. You know, you were supposed to do that to Crawford. But then if he loses, it's like, oh, you let a natural 47-pounder beat you when, you know, ultimately Crawford already fought at 54. Jump it up 2 weight classes. Obviously, it's going to seem like crazy. It's almost a lose-lose for Canelo Alvarez. A lot of people are calling this fight a money grab, and I think, you know, I'm not that mad at, you know, people saying that, but I also think neither of these guys want to lose. And if I had to say, you know, one person that really doesn't want to lose, it's Crawford, because Crawford has never taken an L. And if you guys have ever, you know, seen Crawford, watched his interviews, watched him do anything, he hates losing. And, you know, everybody hates losing. Nobody likes to lose, but this dude is like probably the most competitive individual I've ever seen in the sport, you know, in a long time. So I don't know, there's something about knowing that Canelo's lost before that's like, that's a mental battle already. You know, if you've lost before, you can definitely do it again, you know. So I'm not saying that Crawford can't lose his first fight to Canelo, because, you know, obviously if anyone was going to hand him an L, it would be a natural 168-pounder when Crawford's naturally 47-pounder. But I just don't think Canelo's going to beat Crawford. Like I said, I think it's, you know, a 60-40 fight in favor of Crawford. I just think the intangibles, the IQ, and, you know, like I said, he's intelligent. He's always playing chess in there. And Canelo, for me, you know, he has sneaky shots. I'm not trying to like disrespect him or anything like that, but he seems predictable. You know, if we're just playing video games here and you're playing against Canelo, you're not as confused as you are as opposed to, you know, when you're dealing with a guy like Crawford. You know, I think Crawford's a way harder, you know, puzzle to solve, because Crawford fights differently every time he fights. You know, I don't really see any patterns that, you know, Canelo could probably catch. That's what I think is going to be most difficult for Canelo. I mean, he fights the same way every single time. You know, even when he was younger and faster, more in his prime, he fought kind of the same. You know, not too much, you know, movement with the footwork, and, you know, the hand speed wasn't great. He didn't have great timing, wasn't that accurate. But I will say, you know, he has punching power. He has very good punching power, and the great thing about Canelo is that he's willing to hit any part of you. You know, he doesn't have to land a shot clean on the chin. You know, he'll land a shot to the body, shots on your arms, your elbows, and make you feel that presence and feel the pain of what it's like to get hit by a guy like Canelo with great punching power. But, you know, I still think Crawford outskills him. That doesn't mean I think, you know, Canelo's gonna KO Crawford, because obviously that's a possibility. I just don't personally see it happening, because I think Crawford's going to be ready. You know, I really do think Crawford's been putting in the work. He's been kind of preparing for this fight ever since the Spence fight happened. I know he fought in between with Madrimov, but I still think that, you know, Crawford's been targeting Canelo for a long time, longer than Canelo has been prepping for Crawford. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing that, you know, has affected my opinion, and, you know, that has forced me to pick Crawford to beat Canelo. It's not because I like Crawford more than I like Canelo. I mean, I think both fighters are great, but there's something about the fact that, you know, Crawford has been so eager to get Canelo, that he's been targeting him for such a long time, that makes me think, yeah, he really wants to beat this dude. And I don't know if Canelo can stop what's, you know, inevitably going to happen on September 13th. You know, I think Crawford's going to win a decision. I'm not saying Crawford's going to hurt Canelo Alvarez. Who knows? Maybe he's going to drop him, but there's something about Crawford that, you know, is crazy. You know, he's insane. He really wants to show the people, okay, you guys don't think I can move up multiple weight classes? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm showing up September 13th in Vegas, to show you guys in front of all the Mexican fans that, you know, your boy is going to get exposed. I'm going to expose Canelo Alvarez. That's what Bud's thinking, and that's what he's there to do on September 13th, and I think he's going to do it. So we'll see what happens. Crawford versus Canelo. Let me know who you guys got. I got Crawford by decision. Don't think it's going to end in a knockout, but who knows? This is boxing. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.